I would like to bring in another voice to all of this. Ford O'Connell is former advisor to John McCain's presidential campaign. And Ford, this must be bringing back some memories for you as now we're in this new election period. What are your observations of the night so far? And Daniel also had a question, if we could wrap it into that, of your observations of the night. What do voters see in Mitt Romney? We've obviously spent a lot of time talking about whether or not voters feel conflicted about him as the nominee. But let's also talk about what people see in him at this point.
Well, I think this was a statement win for Mitt Romney. I mean, he won and he won big. And remember, in 2008, even though we have different delegate rules now, that this is where John McCain stole the nomination away from Mitt Romney. And obviously, this thing is far from settled. He's going to have 71 delegates on the way to 1,144 to try to close the gap. But he's got Nevada next, and 2 in a row will be the first winning streak, most likely, in this entire primary. I think what they're seeing right now is electability. And to Doug's point, you know, it's one of these things where the reason why the Republicans in Congress are impotent is because they're looking for a narrative, and they don't feel that they're going to have a narrative without a Republican nominee, because they feel they need to get behind both of them to sort of go after President Obama, and they're too weak on their own right now with their own infighting in Congress to move forward. So basically what we saw is Florida voters really wanted Mitt Romney because of electability. The only two groups he didn't do well with was the very conservative and Tea Party folks.
So as far as the conservative and the Tea Party votes, let's pick up off of that a little bit. Some of our viewers on the chat are saying what this shows us is that the Tea Party will not have the same effect in 2012 that it did in 2010. What do you think about that, Ford?
I think that the Tea Party is going to hold out, and they're going to force Mitt Romney to try to make the case that they should get behind him. And until Mitt Romney does that, we're going to continue to see the Tea Party and the very conservative vote sort of hold. I'm not even sure that it's a conservative vote as much as it's a not Mitt Romney vote. And I think that Mitt Romney, what the conservative base is saying, tell us why we should get behind you. And if you do it, trust me, we dislike President Obama a heck of a lot more than you.
Hey, Ford, I'm wondering if there's any way that you think that Mitt Romney can do that, short of naming a Tea Party politician as a running mate, for example.
You know, it's funny you say that. I'm staying in Team Romney's hotel, so I have been listening to some of the stuff that they're saying. Obviously, now that's out on the air that I said that. But, you know, really, Team Romney's really got to come up with a strategy to get the conservative base. And one way may be with a running mate, and another way may be just to continue the narrative of electability and just continue to pick off caucuses moving forward. But, you know, it is a problem for them, and the question is how soon can they do it? You know, because I think that Mitt Romney right now is 70% of the way to the nomination with a with a statement win and with the resources that he has.
We have a comment from Bonnie Burchett. She says the Tea Party does have the same effect. It's the Republican base trying to squash them. And Ford, that's something else that we should talk about and touch on. If we had a nickel for every time the establishment was mentioned over the last couple of weeks. I mean, at the certain point, you're wondering who these establishment people are in like dark jackets in the corners everywhere. You know, you're starting to feel like they're around us at all the time. Talk to us a little bit about what you saw. Go back to what you saw with McCain, because McCain sometimes clash with the quote-unquote establishment, although I don't know if I could point out who that establishment is. How did you navigate that as a member of the campaign?
Sarah Palin.
Really?
There's your answer. That's you wouldn't believe how many rural voters would call up and request her to come out and speak. They didn't want to talk to John, they wanted to talk to her. The urban voters and the suburban voters were the ones who really wanted to talk to John. So, you know, it was one of these things where we brought on a conservative, running mate who, you have to remember, coming out of Denver, we were down 7 points to Barack Obama. And when Sarah Palin came in and made the great speech in Minneapolis, we went up one, and we were doing really well, relatively speaking, given we had half the resources until the economy fell. And once the economy fell in the toilet, heck, you could have run Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan on the same ticket, and we were going to lose.
What do you think of that on set here? Ford, stand by for a second, because one of the things that we also see, and it dominates a lot of our chat every time we're on, is about the vice presidential candidate. Yeah. There's been a lot of whisper names. I mean, we're on with the historian on Happening Now saying, and I know you've heard this before, that Hillary Clinton would be a surprise VP for President Obama, and that would really bring a lot of energy.
Wouldn't be a
there.
Surprise.
Well, so that's one thing. What about a real surprise for a Mitt Romney or a Newt Gingrich here? An interesting pairing.
The other one.
By the way, our guest here, Ford O'Connell, has his own Twitter handle to that name so you can follow Ford. I'm just trying to, I got to give you a little shout out here, Ford. You're coming online with us. We always appreciate that. Just a quick comment from you. You know, one of the things we were talking on set was about how Mitt Romney came in with a suit on. He's been a little casual over the last couple of days. He comes in a suit. He has a big speech prepared. He seems very consistent. So you'll see this speech in Florida. It looks something very similar to what you've seen over the last couple months. Do you think that consistency is a strength for him, or do you think it's a weakness at times?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's it's a strength for him right now because the only number he cares about is 1,144 delegates, and he's not going to take his foot off the gas until he gets it. That said, though, I think it goes back to your VP question. Sometimes a lot of people just don't find Mitt Romney all that exciting, and I think he's going to have to make the most important pick out there, which is to find a VP who sort of complements him and speaks both to conservatives and independents, because the one thing that we've seen is that we come out of 2008 with John McCain. I think a lot of people are worried about that if Mitt Romney wins the White House, they're worried that he'll compromise too much and he might damage the Republican brand moving forward. So that's something he has to keep in the back of his mind, if he does win the nomination.
Very interesting, Ford. We're going to actually have to say goodbye to Ford. You said you were at the Romney Hotel, where all the Romney guys are staying. Is that right, Ford?
Yeah, I am. I got to go do another hip, but it's going to be. But I'll tell you, I love Fox all the time.
We appreciate that. And so we'll be watching you on Twitter, Ford O'Connell, for any of the dirty little secrets at the hotel later on. Ford, thank you very much.
Wow.
Appreciate it, as always.